The story begins with a boy named Quan, who was once a national champion in Taekwondo, but now spends all his time wasting away in an internet cafe playing video games. He had no job, but his gaming skills were exceptional. In one such online game, his character's name was Captain, and he had a team with some other friends. Their group was called Razor Action, where Captain would risk his life to help his teammates. One day, while playing a game at the internet cafe, Quan noticed a smartphone lying nearby, ringing. He picked it up, and a girl's voice came from the other end. She said that she had forgotten her phone in the cafe and wanted Quan to bring it to her home. At first, Quan was unwilling to leave his game, but when the girl offered him $300 in return, he quickly agreed and set off for her house. When Quan reached her house, he saw that the door was already open and the girl was in the bathroom taking a shower. He spoke to her from outside, and she asked him to leave the phone on the table and take the money kept there. Quan did as she said, but before leaving, he advised her not to leave her door open like that. It wasn't safe, as anyone could walk in. The next day, while Quan was sleeping in his room, police officers suddenly barged in and arrested him. He was accused of murdering the same girl. Quan was utterly shocked because there was blood on his hands. The murder weapon was found in his room, and his fingerprints and DNA were discovered in the girl's house. His footage was captured on the building's security camera, and even his semen was found in the girl's house. Quan was accused of raping the girl twice and then stabbing her in the neck and stomach to kill her. Within hours, his case went viral nationwide, and the entire public started hating him for committing such a heinous crime. When Quan's mother heard the news, she rushed to the police station but was not allowed to meet her son. Later, she was seen distributing pamphlets, trying to convince people that her son was innocent and was being framed in a false case. However, the public was convinced that Quan was the murderer, so they ignored his mother, and many even insulted her. Eventually, she approached a lawyer named Mr. Min for help, but even he believed that Quan was guilty because all the evidence was against him. A few days later, the court hearing took place, and all the evidence against Quan was presented. Due to nationwide media pressure, the court quickly ruled that Quan was the culprit and sentenced him to life imprisonment. He was sent to a high-security prison, where he was denied parole. The judge stated that Quan's mental state had deteriorated due to excessive gaming and unemployment, which led him to commit such a gruesome crime. That night, Quan was taken to the high-security prison, where he was like a helpless child trapped among the most dangerous criminals. One day, a gang leader named Paul noticed Quan, and his men dragged Quan to him. The prison guards saw this happening and knew Quan was about to get beaten, but Paul signaled them to stay away. As soon as Paul started hitting Quan, Quan retaliated by punching Paul, which enraged him. Then, Paul's goons mercilessly beat Quan, breaking his bones. Shortly after, the guards intervened, but Paul accused Quan of attacking him. As a result, Quan was punished with 30 days of solitary confinement in a dark room. Later, Paul and his goons again cornered Quan and brutally beat him. They even injected him with a strange substance that made him lose his mind and start trying to eat his own body. From then on, Quan was beaten almost daily in prison. One day, his mother visited him with lawyer Mr. Min. Seeing Quan's condition, she was devastated because she knew he was suffering terrible abuse in prison. She could tell from his wounds what was happening. She told Quan, "Son, just endure this for a while. I will get you out of here. I will not let the world call me the mother of a rapist." Her words gave Quan strength. This time, when he returned to prison, he was filled with newfound determination. However, the cycle of beatings from Paul and his gang continued. One day, another prisoner offered Quan an ointment to apply to his wounds, believing that Quan couldn't be the killer. He also suspected that Paul knew Quan was innocent, which is why he kept targeting him, because he was an easy victim. At that moment, Quan decided to fight back and prove to everyone that he wasn't someone who could be easily crushed. The next time Paul's men came to beat him, Quan quickly hid and made small weapons using a pen and paper. Then, one by one, he defeated Paul's men and finally knocked Paul unconscious with a single strike. The next day, Mr. Min visited Quan and informed him that his mother had passed away. He handed Quan his mother's death certificate for him to sign, so the government could conduct her last rites. Quan wasn't even allowed to attend his mother's funeral. Mr. Min explained that the public had harassed his mother so much that she became severely depressed and eventually died of grief. Hearing this, Quan completely broke down. That night, his mother appeared in his dreams and hugged him. The next morning, Quan remembered his mother's words. She had told him not to live the life of a rapist. He had promised her that he would prove his innocence. Suddenly, he launched an attack on Paul, but in the process, Quan himself got stabbed in the stomach. He was then put in a prison transport vehicle to be taken to the hospital. However, he suddenly regained consciousness and attacked the guards, pressing a sharp object against the chief guard's neck, demanding the key to his handcuffs. The guard handed him the key, but just then, Their vehicle met with an accident. Everyone was injured, but Quan somehow managed to survive. He unlocked his handcuffs and ran away. However, the chief guard aimed a gun at him, but for some reason, he lowered his gun, perhaps realizing that Quan did not belong in prison. He let Quan escape. Now, Quan ran into the forest, avoiding the authorities. Soon, the entire country's police force was on a mission to capture him. While escaping, Quan noticed a couple whose car had broken down, and they were in a hurry to reach the airport. Quan helped fix their car, and in return, they gave him a lift. They didn't recognize him, and since they were leaving the country, they even gave Quan their car to sell for some money. Finally, Quan drove toward the city. With no place to hide, he went to Mr. Min's house, hoping he would understand his situation. Mr. Min gave Quan his mother's last belonging, a necklace. He then comforted Quan, saying he would re-examine his case files. However, in the meantime, he called the police because he wanted Quan to surrender. Upon hearing this, Quan fled before the police arrived. After some time, he reached an internet cafe and started reading all the articles written about him. Every single one was against him. But then, he stumbled upon a documentary that claimed Quan had been framed. The documentary's writer pointed out that it was impossible for Quan to rape the girl twice and murder her within just 3 minutes. Furthermore, many pieces of evidence in the case had been tampered with. Seeing all this, Quan took a deep breath and then saw that the writer of this story was a man named Mr. Harry, who used to play games with Quan. Soon, Mr. Harry met Quan, and it was revealed that he was actually a girl named Yul, who was Quan's teammate in gaming. Yul warned Quan that the cafe manager was about to inform the police, so he needed to escape. Later, Yul called him to meet at a restaurant, and then took him to a secret hideout outside the city where she lived alone, hiding from the world. She was actually a computer geek and spent all her time working on computers. She prepared a delicious meal for Quan, which made his soul happy, as he was sick of eating stale prison food. Soon, the rest of his gaming team also arrived there, as they now wanted to help Quan just like he had helped them in the game. Yul researched Quan's case and found all the flaws in the fabricated evidence. Now, with the entire team's support, she was determined to prove Quan's innocence. Their team investigated all the recent high-profile cases, and during this, they noticed a specific truck appearing in all the crime scene footage. Yul tracked the details of the truck and discovered that it was registered under a scrapyard. Quan secretly reached the scrapyard and saw 2 men loading a large box into a vehicle. He followed them to a building, which turned out to be the house of No Jun Young, a famous TV actor. At that moment, Quan saw that the box contained No Jun's body, which had been brought from the scrapyard. Hiding in a corner, Quan observed that some special agents arrived and started planting fabricated evidence, such as fingerprints and hair. This was when it was revealed that Quan's lawyer, Min, was the mastermind behind this mission. In reality, the true murderer of No Jun was a girl named Shu, the daughter of a wealthy businessman. To protect his daughter from going to jail, Shu's father assigned Min the task of fabricating false evidence to frame someone else. Min had a secret room in his building that could only be accessed using his face. There, he used a highly advanced intelligence computer to find an innocent girl on whom he could shift the blame for Shu's daughter's crime. This girl's name was So, who had no connection to No Jun and was peacefully living her life, unaware of the danger ahead. Meanwhile, Quan took No Jun's body, from which Min's agents had planted someone else's fingerprints. He handed the picture of this evidence to Yul, who scanned the fingerprints to find out who Min was planning to frame this time. Soon, Yul discovered that the fingerprints belonged to a girl named So. Min had sent his team to So's house to sedate her and collect samples of her hair, blood, and saliva to use as fabricated evidence in No Jun's murder case. After this, they called So and lured her to No Jun's house. However, Quan had tapped the call and overheard everything. The voice on the phone was the same one that had called him to the crime scene in his own case. The truth was that even in Quan's case, the real murderer was the son of a rich man, and to protect him, false evidence was created to make Quan the scapegoat. Quan then went to meet the girl whose voice he had heard on the phone and attempted to abduct her, but at the last moment, she escaped on a motorcycle with someone else. Quan chased after them, but his vehicle broke down. Suddenly, Paul and his men captured him. Paul had somehow been released from prison, and now he wanted revenge by torturing Quan in a deserted place. Quan had attacked him in jail, and now Paul was back for payback. However, Yul had already alerted the SWAT team about Quan's location, and soon the SWAT team arrived to arrest Paul. Taking advantage of the chaos, Quan managed to escape. Yul picked him up in a car, and they fled. On the way, Quan asked how Paul had managed to find him. That's when Yul discovered a tracker in Quan's mother's necklace. They realized that Min had been tracking him all along because he was the one who had given Quan the necklace to constantly monitor his location. In the end, Quan had to let go of his mother's last memento and threw it away. Later, Kwan's team built some drones and sent them to scan Min's building. They were convinced that there had to be a high-tech supercomputer storing data on people across the country. Fortunately, their suspicion turned out to be correct when the drones detected large computers inside the building. Meanwhile, Kwan erased all the fake evidence from No Jun's case. When Min found out about this, he ordered his agents to clear the entire house and create a new crime scene elsewhere. However, Kwan blew up their van, which contained all the fabricated evidence. Meanwhile, Shu's daughter was hiding in a hospital, pretending to be a patient. She wanted to leave the country soon, so Min had to create a new crime scene quickly. Under pressure from businessman Shu, Min started preparing another fabricated crime scene. But before he could complete it, Kwan tricked Shu's daughter into coming to the crime scene, and she was arrested for the crime she had committed. This news spread like wildfire across the country. Min's entire mission had now failed. Kwan then called Min and warned him that his crimes would soon be exposed to the world. However, Min, being a psychopath, was actually excited that someone was finally challenging him. He admitted that he was getting bored of easily fabricating crime scenes, but Kwan was making things interesting for him. However, before Min could continue his nonsense, Kwan hung up the phone, infuriating Min. Just then, Min noticed something shocking in his office. His secretary had been murdered. He realized that Kwan had only called to distract him while he sneaked into his house. Min ran towards his secret room, but Kwan caught him from behind and started beating him mercilessly. Their fight led them to Min's high-tech supercomputer. Kwan found crucial evidence in Min's supercomputer, including the video proving how he was framed, as well as videos of his mother fighting alone for his release. Suddenly, Min confessed that Kwan's mother didn't die naturally. He had killed her because she was constantly protesting and creating trouble. People had started supporting her emotionally, which was a problem for him. This revelation enraged Kwan, who then brutally attacked Min. Meanwhile, Kwan started transferring all the evidence from Min's supercomputer to Yell's thumb drive. At that moment, Paul called Kwan, saying that he had captured his team and would kill them if Kwan didn't come immediately. Min revealed that using the tracker in the necklace, they had found Yell's hideout, and Paul had taken Kwan's friends hostage. Kwan had only 30 seconds to save them. Without wasting time, he rushed to rescue his teammates. At Yell's hideout, Paul fired a shot at one of Kwan's teammates, but missed. Suddenly, the power went out, and at that moment, Kwan arrived. Using his incredible fighting skills, he defeated Paul's men. Then, Kwan's team rushed towards a TV station. Along the way, they had to evade Paul's gang, Min's special agents, and even the police. Min, on the other hand, hacked TV channels and portrayed Kwan's team as dangerous criminals. As Kwan and his team reached the TV station, the others distracted their pursuers while Yell set up her computer system to expose Min's truth to the entire country. However, the police managed to arrest Kwan's teammates, and they surrounded his car. With no other option, Kwan surrendered. People across the country watched this live, and Min was delighted. But soon, his happiness turned into horror when his command center shut down. He realized that Yell's thumb drive was still in his computer, and all his data had been transferred to Yell. Yell then hacked national TV channels and broadcasted Min's crimes, revealing how he fabricated evidence and framed innocent people. She also showed Kwan's case, making the public realize their mistake in judging him. Min tried to escape in his car, but Kwan's team had removed the steering wheel. Soon, Min was arrested, but everyone knew that a bigger mafia was behind him, still hidden. In the end, Kwan and his team were honorably acquitted. Meanwhile, in jail, Min met Paul, who was furious at him, suggesting that Min's time in prison would not be easy. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.